Peggle is such a good flipping game, and I know that deeply in everyone's heart of hearts, everyone knows this to be true. However, why must Peggle fans hide the dark secrets Peggle displays proudly in its cupboard? So today, let's take a gander at this immaculate game and its many intricacies that others just gloss over. We start this game by being inaugurated into Peggle University by Bjorn, which is ironically a really good play on words, since Bjorn sounds extremely close to born, meaning metaphorically, our first class at Peggle University is if we are being born for the first time. Though no matter how friendly Bjorn seems, this is just a safe face, because Bjorn keeps majority of his professing malpractice hidden from the player. While on the outside he may seem innocent, most Peggle professors are tenured, allowing him to get away with murder if he needs to, which, judging by there being no initial downside to him seeing the future with his super guide, clearly he must do something to keep this power afloat. Luckily, our next Peggle master, Jimmy Lightning, is one of the few morally good professors. While his intro card does call for multi-bollular action, which could be considered harassment at some campuses, his ignorant choice of words is actually a way of being a healthy distraction for the player. Since Jimmy knows his students will have to face the rest of these terrible and sometimes psychopathic professors, he puts on a goofy smile and skates on a skateboard, hoping that at least for a second, his students can forget these heinous people. This inherent teaching ability is also seen in his power. Since all it does is spawn an extra ball, it allows students more chances to study how these balls interact with the pegs, meaning that Jimmy cares so deeply about his students, he would even defy Newton's laws by creating mass from nothing if it means his students can learn. Though above all else, if you don't believe in Jimmy's goodness, the ox in the background of this level was actually saved by Jimmy. This ox was relentlessly tested on and scarred for life by one of the other professors, which unfortunately left him with this face robbed of its light. Cat Tut, while not necessarily evil compared to other professors, is a very deceptive person. While this is hard to notice, we slowly unravel that Cat Tut isn't even a Peggle master. The most obvious hint towards this is his pyramid power. While he tries to gaslight us for telling of its subtle effects, clearly no higher education is required to create this power. This power is that of a middle schooler creating a pyramid diorama for their history class. And the worst part of this is the smug smile Cat Tut has plastered on his face, reveling in the fact we wasted our money paying for this class slot, since he knows he's just going to teach us what we already know. Splork Sporkan, like Jimmy, is an exception when it comes to quality of teaching, with his bomb ability requiring precise usage depending on the timing of the moving pegs and the bricks around it, giving students tons of learning opportunities. However, no matter how good his teaching is, Splork is a bomber, and sadly most students who get high grades in his class get incessantly hounded by him to join the unsanctioned Peggle Bombing Club, which is an illegal organization who attempts to get insurance money from bombing small businesses. Though considering Splork is an intergalactic alien, his definition of a small business is pretty different than ours, so usually he sends all his insurance fraud plans to what we consider big companies, usually ending with a message not even being read, which then leads to Splork being confused when they never send him any of the insurance money back after one of his bombing runs. In our 5th semester at Peggle University, we unfortunately don't have any choice of professor other than the Frenchman Claude Lobster. While many instantly will dog on Homie simply for his land of origin, the main flaw Claude has is a hyperfixation on his name and its pun. He loves that if you take the C as silent in Claude, you get the word loud, making it so every lecture he always starts with anything at all that's loud. This has led him to explode basketballs, shoot track and field starter pistols, and even attempt to use one of Splork's bombs at the beginning of class. Though, of course, speaking of Claude's name, we do need to clear the air of the misconception with the Claude pun. Many think Claude is actually alluding to how Claude has claws, as in Claude, though, as stated prior, the correct pun is when the C is silent and loud, as stated by the Peggle for Dummies guidebook. Renfield Pumpkin is the last exception when it comes to the good professors at Peggle University, and if we want to rank kindness to professors, Renfield is actually at the top of the list by an insane margin. So much so that the gratitude that his students have for him actually causes them to become ghosts with unfinished business. That business being needing to repay Renfield for his good deeds. Also, if you looked closely at Renfield, you probably noticed his stem looks more akin to a funnel. This is due to Renfield's occupation as a jack-o'-lantern, requiring a constant supply of lantern oil in order to keep his glow. While this may imply he will die if he runs out of oil, it actually just throws his power out of whack, changing his spooky balls into boring balls, causing the player to fall asleep instantly. Tula Sunflower is the most loved professor of many students. However, none of these students understand what Tula's class structure does to them. The downsides can honestly be summed up by Tula's peg removing ability. This ability inherently teaches them nothing, leaving the students no better off than they were before taking her semester, usually making their future classes much harder, all due to Tula's enabling and babysitting of students. And not to mention, the deep-rooted jealousy Tula has against tulips, which started by how devastated she was after learning she wasn't a tulip even though she was named Tula. This grudge is built so much that she forces her students to wreak havoc on a tulip village every semester. Moving on to Warren Rabbit, we have finally met the first neutral professor. Warren has not a single care for teaching whatsoever. However, he does care about the concept of luck. So while he doesn't teach well, his deep fascination with luck rubs off on his students, forcing them to grapple with the fact that no matter if a person is hardworking or not, luck can always make or break one's success. Though weirdly enough, with how little care Warren puts into his class, his magic hat ability is extremely unique, because while we have seen duplication of balls or enhancing of the ball's abilities, we have never seen another object like this hat be given the properties of a Peggle ball, clearly implying that Warren harvests Peggle balls that fall into the void, weaving them to create these hats. Our second to last semester has us under Professor Lord Cinderbottom. Cinderbottom is part of an evil organization, the Order of the Flame, and by him implying he could give us supremacy over this order, it's safe to say he is the leader as well. However, it is a little odd he desires to see us have supremacy over his organization when we have little to no experience running a crime ring. The only explanation is that Cinderbottom constantly lures students to this position to be puppet leaders, allowing him to control his organization from afar and when anything goes wrong. And speaking of Lord Cinderbottom being a dragon, do y'all like Imagine Dragons? But compared to every single other professor, who is the hands down worst professor at Peggle University? This foul warbler, bird of prey, fledgling, breagle piece of trash thinks he's him, when in reality he is a fraud. His Zen shot, while it might look as though he's using a power, who is simply the biggest nerd in Peggle history, who has spent thousands of hours on his levels specifically memorizing every single possibility and every single situation just so he can attempt to flex on his students with his Zen shots, where he just puts on some goofy contacts and then racking his brain giving us an optimal shot according to his knowledge. Though, while on its own, you may be thinking this makes Who a perfect fit for a professor at Peggle University with his vast knowledge, this is only the case if one with knowledge doesn't let it get to one's head, but Who specifically will call out students who perform bad and heckle them for any tiny mistake they make. Though this doesn't just apply to lower performing students, even students who may hit better shots than he does, Who instantly will say it is due to luck, and they couldn't possibly hit any good shots without graduate level classes. Just overall, Who is a condescending professor and a horrible final required professor at Peggle University. And finally, after every bad professor and the occasional good professor, we made it to the final exam that Peggle himself made back during the founding of this university, where Peggle brings us an extremely good metaphor for not just our Peggle journey, but for life as well. If we go over each level in our final, we have extremely simple shapes: a spiral, stripes, randomly assorted pegs, with the only slightly complicated pattern being the strand of DNA. These stages test us by wordlessly proposing a single question. Is the pattern of pegs what determines true difficulty, or is it the obstacles they surround? And while I would love to answer this question for you all, the true answer is only revealed to those who know. And that is the end of this video. If you enjoyed, you know what to do.